Today we're going to be covering concept 2.5, biochemical changes involve energy. This is in your textbook, pages 31 through 34 for Principles of Life, second edition for the AP course, Hillis et al. Chemical reactions occur when atoms have enough energy to combine or change bonding partners. What this means is we have some type of change in the configuration of electrons. So, for example, when we take sucrose and water as our reactants right here on the left side of the equation, and they will react to produce glucose and fructose. Okay, so we can see here C6H12O6, C6H12O6. Now, those both have the same chemical formula, but we know from our lesson on carbohydrates that they have different structures. So chemical reactions also involve a change in energy, which can be defined as the capacity to do work or the capacity for change. In this case, we're talking about chemical change. In biochemical reactions, energy changes are usually associated with changes in the chemical composition and properties of molecules. Now, what that means is that once these reactions occur, the chemicals that we had as reactants, they become very different than the ones that are the products. So when you look at table salt is a wonderful example. So because of the ionic interaction between the sodium ion and the chlorine ion, sodium, which is a metal in its pure form, is incredibly reactive. In fact, it is explosive when combined with water. Chlorine is a poisonous gas. Chlorine was used in World War I as chemical warfare. If you were to take a deep breath of chlorine gas, it would be enough to make you very sick, possibly even kill you. However, once those two react and they form an ionic attraction to each other, they become relatively harmless as table salt. So all forms of energy can be considered as either potential energy or kinetic energy. Now, not to get into a physics lesson here, potential energy means that you are storing energy. Think of it like a rubber band. Okay, so you pull that rubber band back, you hold it, and then you let it go. Now, once you let it go, that potential energy then becomes kinetic energy, or the energy that is being used that's doing work. Okay, this kinetic energy is what makes things change. It can be converted from one form to another. Most reactions are reversible. So when we look at all this energy, we have this term called metabolism. So this is the sum total of all chemical reactions occurring in a biological system at a given time. So I want to talk about two things here. One, metabolism. You've probably heard someone say, oh, he can eat whatever he wants to because he has a high metabolism. What that means in that context is that you eat a lot of food, but you don't really gain weight. Okay, but metabolism just refers to the energy of all chemical reactions in a biological system. The second thing I want to talk about, what a biological system is. We are talking in whichever level you want to examine. You could study the metabolism of the muscular system or of an individual cell or an entire organism. Okay, now once you get above that level, it becomes inherently difficult to study metabolism at, let's say, the population or ecosystem level. Now, these metabolic reactions involve these energy changes that we talked about. It's either stored or released from the production or destruction of chemical bonds. So the reaction will occur spontaneously if the total energy consumed by breaking the bonds is less than the total energy released by forming bonds in the products. Now, if you look on page 32 in your text figure 2.14, it gives a good representation of that in terms of free energy and how it works, which we'll get to in a second. So the two types of metabolic reactions are anabolic. Okay, this is when we are requiring energy. We say they are also endergonic or endothermic. Energy is captured in the chemical bonds that form them. We are storing energy here. Okay, so as I was saying in figure 2.14 on page 32 again, you can see here this free energy. It takes energy to move this red ball up this hill. Okay, so we are now storing that energy there. Once we reach the top of the hill, we can release it all. Okay, and then that will become a usable form of energy. So opposed to anabolic reactions, we have catabolic reactions. In this case, energy is released. So when you are consuming a meal, you are having both of these occur at the same time because you are breaking down the bonds that are in that food, and you are also building bonds in your cells as ways to repair the cells that you have. Maybe you need it because you were going to go to the gym later. Maybe you were going to take a walk with your dog later, and you need to then store that energy in glycogen for usage later. So catabolic and anabolic reactions are typically linked, and the energy released in catabolic reactions is used to drive anabolic reactions, essentially to do biological work. Now, this is all of the processes within our cells. It's also, all the way up to the organismal level. Okay, we're talking about all of that biological work to keep us alive. Okay, so we do have to talk about the laws of thermodynamics real quick. So the first law, we can't just magically create this energy. So energy is neither created nor destroyed. We simply recycle it. Okay. The second law, useful energy tends to decrease. Okay. So when energy is converted from one form to another, some of that energy becomes unavailable for doing work. And realistically, we're able to capture about 10% of that usable form of energy. The rest is typically lost to heat, waste product, or just general inefficiencies in the metabolic process. Okay, so we can see right here, figure 215A on page 33 in your text. Okay, we have energy before, energy after. We want it, to be this nice, seesaw that stays nice and balanced. But let's keep an eye on the contrasting colors here in our diagram. So the second law of thermodynamics. So we see here we have energy before, and we have this free energy here, and we have this unusable energy after. Okay. And what we see is that as we continue going through reaction after reaction after reaction, eventually that original energy that we had here, that potential energy, we have lost all of it. Okay, now fortunately, we are not a closed system, so we can go and eat another cheeseburger. Okay, we're not having to recycle that same cheeseburger over and over again. So again, no physical process or chemical reaction is 100% efficient. Some is lost with this disorder that we discussed. The energy is so dispersed that it is unusable. This is what we call entropy, which is a measurement of disorder in the system. So as a result of this, energy transformation disorder tends to increase as we continue to go. And if a reaction increases entropy, its products are more disordered or random than its reactants, and there are fewer products than reactants, the disorder is reduced. This requires energy to achieve, so this would be our anabolic reactions. So metabolism will create more disorder naturally. So the anabolic reactions needed to construct 1 kilogram of animal body require the catabolism of 10 kilograms of food. Okay, so that 10% that we talked about again. So, that is why if you want to put on muscle mass, that you have to, increase your dietary intake of protein. If you are trying to remove body mass, you have to do extra work to do that. The same rule applies there. So if you have any questions about this lesson, put it in the comments below or make sure to bring them to class and we will get them addressed.